The champagne glass was still in my hand when my world quietly began to tilt. Not with an explosion, not with tragedy, just a phone call. A familiar voice, polite on the surface but heavy with something darker underneath. "Mom, I need you to do something for me." That's how every one of my son Daniel's stories started, and almost none of them ended well. I'd been celebrating the closing of a chapter 35 years in the making, the sale of my architectural firm. The company I had built from a rented garage, with blueprints spread across a folding table, and dreams too big for the small town I started in. The buyers had paid handsomely, more than I'd ever imagined. I'd already mapped out the next stage of my life, a quiet retreat on the Maine coast, a cedar home overlooking the water, somewhere I could finally breathe. No deadlines. No clients, no chaos. Just wind, ocean, and peace. At least that was the plan. When I picked up the phone, Daniel didn't even say hello. He dove right in. "Hey, Mom. I talked to Emma and we decided we're going to stay with you for a while. Just until the renovations are done at our place. Maybe 3-4 weeks tops." I froze, staring out at the ocean like it might give me an excuse. I'd only been in the new house for 2 days. 2 blissful, silent days. "Daniel," I said carefully, "your home's a 4-hour drive from here. Renovations? I thought those weren't starting until next month." There was a pause. Then a sigh. "Yeah, about that. The contractor moved things up. And Emma's parents are visiting from out of state, so they'll be staying too. You've got, 5 bedrooms?" "Plenty of room." I almost laughed. "Daniel, this is my home, not a rental lodge. You can visit but not move in with your in-laws." His tone sharpened instantly, steel hiding behind the politeness. "Mom, come on. You've got space and you're not using it. Don't be difficult." Something inside me twitched. I'd heard that tone before, from his father. The same mix of entitlement and gentle threat wrapped in charm. It always started with, "Don't be difficult." By the time I hung up, I already knew the decision had been made without me. The next morning, 3 SUVs pulled into my gravel driveway, tires crunching like thunder. Out came Daniel, his wife Emma, her parents, her sister's boyfriend, and 2 golden retrievers. It looked like a circus caravan. They didn't knock. They didn't ask. They just poured in. Emma's mother immediately declared the living room a bit minimalist. Her father dropped his golf clubs on my antique table. Daniel opened my refrigerator, frowned, and muttered, "You didn't stock much, huh?" I stood there, barefoot, holding my coffee mug, and watched them take ownership of my home. I didn't argue. Not yet. In business, I'd learned something powerful. The best way to defeat arrogance is to let it run its course. Within hours, the house stopped feeling like mine. Music blared from Bluetooth speakers, wet towels appeared on the sofa, and the dogs claimed my favorite chair. By nightfall, I'd been relegated to the smallest guest room so the family could spread out. Emma smiled as she handed me my own folded linens. "Thank you for being so understanding," she said sweetly. I could smell my perfume on her shirt. The next morning, I made my first move. I called my lawyer. "Pull the deed," I told him. "And check the ownership structure. Every detail, then my accountant." "Remind me," I said, "how we set up the property. Trust LLC? I want to make sure everything is airtight." They both knew better than to ask why. I'd spent too long in the corporate world not to prepare for betrayal. By day 3, they were holding planning meetings around my dining table. Emma's father announced they'd host a family barbecue. Just a small get-together. I counted 30 names on the list. "Daniel," I said quietly that night, "do you think it's appropriate to throw a party in someone else's home without asking?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Mom, you're overreacting. We're family. Stop being so territorial. Family." That word again. The shield of the selfish. So I smiled. I agreed. And then I made another phone call. "Peter," I said to my old business partner, "you still run that catering company, right?" "Good, I need a favor." "A private event. Same night, double your usual rate." "Oh, and send the best champagne you've got." He laughed. "You're up to something, aren't you?" "Always," I said. The night of the barbecue arrived. The house looked like a resort. Music, lights, laughter, the sound of strangers drinking my wine and swimming in my pool. Emma glided around greeting guests like a queen. Daniel bragged loudly about the family estate. I waited until they were all settled. Then the catering truck arrived. Uniformed staff unloaded silver trays, champagne flutes, lobster tails, filet mignon. The guests went silent, eyes wide. Daniel rushed over, whispering, "Mom, what the hell is this?" "The barbecue," I said, smiling. "Didn't you want it to be memorable?" The night unfolded like a scene from a movie. By dessert, everyone was talking about Daniel's amazing generosity. And when the bill arrived the next morning, $12,000, I left it neatly folded beside his coffee cup. The cracks began immediately. Emma's family packed early. Her father muttered something about miscommunication. Daniel tried to call the bank to increase his credit limit. And I simply watched. Because the truth always surfaces when money starts to sink. That week, I received a call from a real estate agent. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she said, "we received an inquiry about selling your property. A Daniel Hawthorne claimed to represent you. I just wanted to confirm I didn't even let her finish." "Thank you for calling," I said. "That man has no authority over anything I own." My hand didn't shake when I hung up. It was almost peaceful. The next day, Daniel confronted me. "You've made everything complicated, Mom. You're not thinking clearly anymore." He used that tone, the patronizing one, like I was a fragile thing. "Maybe it's time we got you some help," he added. "You're alone too much. This house is too big for you." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Help. Assisted living. He wasn't threatening anymore. He was planning. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and made a decision. If he wanted control, I'd give him something to chase, an illusion he could never catch. 2 days later, I sold the house. At least that's what it looked like on paper. In reality, I transferred it to an LLC in my name, managed by a professional firm. Daniel would never find his way through the paperwork jungle I'd created. Then I left him a voicemail. "Daniel, I've decided to downsize. You were right. The house is too big for me. I've arranged for property managers to handle things from now on. They'll contact you if they need access." I could practically hear the confusion crackle through the line. A week passed. Peace returned. The waves sounded softer. The air smelled cleaner. Then came the knock on the door. A woman in a blazer holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Hawthorne? I'm from Adult Protective Services. We received a report that you might be experiencing cognitive decline and financial exploitation." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Let me guess," I said. "The report came from a Daniel Hawthorne?" She hesitated, professionalism fighting curiosity. "I can't disclose that," she said softly. Of course she couldn't, so I let her in. Showed her the pantry, the medication drawer, the property documents, the bank records. When she left, she said, "You're one of the most organized people I've met, Mrs. Hawthorne." "I've had practice," I said. By the end of the week, Daniel's plan had collapsed. His calls grew frantic. "Mom, please, we need to talk." I didn't answer. Instead, I hired an investigator, an old contact from my corporate days. Within days, he handed me a report thicker than a novel. Daniel's design firm was broke. He'd taken loans using future inheritance as collateral. He'd consulted 3 lawyers about declaring me incompetent. He'd been planning this for months. That was the day I stopped calling him my son. When the legal letters arrived, his lawyer claiming concern for my mental well-being, I didn't flinch. My own attorney, Sarah Lou, called me that same afternoon. "Do you want to pursue charges?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "He's still trying to play chess. Let's see if he realizes I'm the one holding the board." But Daniel didn't back down. He started contacting my renters, my neighbors, even my mail carrier. He told people I was delusional, unsafe, unfit. He was trying to isolate me, to destroy my credibility so he could take over what he couldn't control. That was his last mistake. I documented everything. Every message, every voicemail, every rumor. And then I filed restraining order, defamation claim, elder harassment. When we finally sat across from each other in Sarah's office, he looked like a ghost. Pale, shaking, eyes darting everywhere but at me. "Mom," he said softly, "I never meant for it to get this far." "Then why did you keep pushing?" I asked. He swallowed. "Because I thought you needed guidance." I stared at him for a long moment. "You mean control." He didn't deny it. Sarah slid the documents toward him. "Your mother is pursuing full protection under elder financial abuse statutes. Given the evidence, I'd advise settlement and withdrawal of all claims." He nodded silently. For the first time in his life, Daniel didn't have anything to say. Months passed. The sea changed colors with the seasons. My house, my fortress, was peaceful again. The management company handled rentals to families who respected the space. Each guest left notes of gratitude on the counter. They reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Kindness still exists in strangers, even when it dies in family. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No lawyer's stamp, no threats. Just a simple envelope with Danny. Handwriting inside, a single page. "Mom, I was wrong. I thought power meant protection, but all I did was destroy trust. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I finally understand what you were trying to teach me all those years." Love, Daniel. I read it once, then again. And I realized forgiveness wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about freeing myself from the weight of it. Now, each morning, I stand on my deck with coffee in hand, the ocean stretching out forever. I still think of Daniel sometimes, not with anger, but with acceptance. We all inherit something from our parents, and sometimes what we inherit is the very flaw that breaks us. I inherited stubbornness. He inherited control, but only one of us learned how to let go. If you're listening to this, remember this. Peace is expensive. It costs comfort, illusions, sometimes even blood ties. But once you've paid that price, no one can ever take it from you again. Thank you for hearing my story. Subscribe if you believe in starting over, no matter how late in life. And tell me, where are you listening from?